because all of us would like to sort out every one of those torturers, those butchers, those businesses that profited under apartheid, etc., etc. We'd love to do that. Difficulty is, the reality is that many of those today are providing jobs in our context. So the question I would pose is, do we simply get rid of 120 to 140,000 formal sector jobs?
Let's be very clear here. It's not we that are saying that these companies must shut down. Let me just quote you what the Minister of Labour says.
If that's the argument that's being said, then I want those people to stand up and say that.
If people continue to die in their workplace, whether it means that there's no fuel in the country, I, as Membatise Shepherd Matlatlana, will not allow any company to kill people.
Yeah, of course industry is important. They do bring in rates. But you can't sacrifice the health of a small group of people next to a refinery in the national interest, because that's a person's life. They're not sort of sacrificial lambs that can expendable. Their life is as important as everybody else in the country.
My response is, if those industries are killing people and those industries are polluting in a manner that leads to serious injustices, health problems and all of that, yes, it needs to be shut down.
It's a much smaller scale of what apartheid did. The killings under apartheid are far greater than what has occurred here.
Why is it in South Africa, when we had apartheid, we were treated as inferior citizens, and now this is just as bad as apartheid?
One, taking up expropriated land. Two, killing a person in Merebank with the heavy-duty trucks. Three, proposing to extend the hazardous landfill site into community neighborhoods. Four, wanting to incinerate waste. And five, wanting to incinerate the ash waste that they are producing on the site. So yeah, that's Mondi's legacy.
The board of trustees of Mondi come from Umhlanga Rocks, all the big guys. They traveled through Merebank and Wentworth to get to Mondi, to their boardroom, to have a meeting.
You made the point that industry would not be located in Umhlanga, which is a rich community or whatever, and has traditionally been located near poorer communities. And I would hope, certainly living in South Africa currently, that that kind of thing would not happen currently. I don't know all of them, but one of the prominent members of the business is Cyril Ramaphosa.
Ramaphosa has bought into Anglo America now. He's got a share. He's bought one of the machineries at PM1 and 2. These are powerful figures you're dealing with now. They're in industry. They're the captains of industry now. So community groups are being ignored because the faces have changed now. You know, the captains of industry have changed.
I mean, do you not think that it just becomes then kind of laughable in a way, because how are you going to enforce certain restrictions, etc., on a company that is very much kind of in cahoots with someone who is very politically aligned and probably has, you know, lines directly to the top, and they can influence decisions?
Sorry, I'm taken aback only because the idea of black economic empowerment is such a positive thing in this country, you know, and it's something that companies are asked to promote. And the fact that, you know, and we've advertised, in inverted commas, this particular black economic empowerment venture as a very positive thing, because that's how we view it. It's actually making resources available to black people.
And Cyril Ramaphosa is a multi-millionaire in his own right. It's hardly disadvantaged. So, I mean, in terms of like black empowerment, he is already empowered. He sits amongst the black elite in this country. And that's the problem in a way that people have with the BE, is that all it's doing is further developing the resources of a black elite. Whereas at the end of at the bottom of the chain, nothing has changed for those people.
It happens to be somebody who, by virtue of his previous position with government or whatever, I suppose, has access to finance, which enables him to purchase into companies.
Firstly, we had to prove that the toxic ash contained heavy chemicals, heavy metals like chrome, mercury, cyanide, and all that. And we had to do it, and we done that. It wasn't always the company willing to do it, Okay, fine, we know we have a problem, let's do it, They didn't want to. They denied it. They lied about it. And they had certain officials within the Department of Water and Forestry lying with them.
Mondi was also planning to extend the ash landfill site at the back on the western side of the Mondi plant. They wanted to extend that right next door into the community neighborhood in Merebank, right next door to the houses. We objected to this, and for many months we had a battle with Mondi and government. And we said to Mondi that the ash that they were dumping in our Merebank community, in the community, needs to be landfilled as hazardous waste.
Mondi would dispose of to any site that is licensed and registered under draft's minimum requirements, which is the current policy, Mondi.
So eventually we took a sample as communities and we sent the sample to then, I think, ML Sultan Technicon. And before our sample came back, I think either government or Mondi was sufficiently concerned about us taking a sample, they unilaterally declared the landfill site a hazardous landfill site.
I mean, the site at Umlazi was not shut down because of Mondi's ash. It was because of a disposal site located close to the community.
We managed to get it closed on the 28th of February 1997.
I assume if a landfill site is not managed properly, then definitely those would become issues.
But then Mondi was putting stuff there. Does it not take any responsibility for where it puts the stuff?
If ash was not considered hazardous waste, why aren't they putting it on a general landfill site? Why are they sending it to a specialized landfill site? And why is the Mondi ash landfill site adjacent to Mondi classified as a high hazardous landfill site? But every environmental struggle is always bittersweet, so we stopped them dumping toxic waste here. But what they eventually did, because it was so poorly managed, there was a big hole at the back. What had happened was this was at the top of the valley, which went down. And when we finally managed to stop them dumping toxic waste down the bottom, they, within a 6 or 7 month period, they knew the shit's going to hit the fan. So what they did was they started digging where this grass is just across here. Mondi and a whole lot of other companies dump their ash here now, until this landfill site can be closed off properly. Now that this landfill site, as you can see, is visibly full, it can't take any more ash. Mondi now wants to burn the ash, incinerate it, to incinerate all their waste in their boilers. So eventually we took a sample as communities and we sent the sample to then, I think, ML Sultan Technicon. And before our sample came back, I think either government or Mondi was sufficiently concerned about us taking a sample, they unilaterally declared the landfill site a hazardous landfill site.
I mean, the site at Umlazi was not shut down because of Mondi's ash. It was because of a disposal site located close to the community.
We managed to get it closed on the 28th of February 1997.
I assume if a landfill site is not managed properly, then definitely those would become issues.
But then Mondi was putting stuff there. Does it not take any responsibility for where it puts the stuff?
If ash was not considered hazardous waste, why aren't they putting it on a general landfill site? Why are they sending it to a specialized landfill site? And why is the Mondi ash landfill site adjacent to Mondi classified as a high hazardous landfill site? But every environmental struggle is always bittersweet, so we stopped them dumping toxic waste here. But what they eventually did, because it was so poorly managed, there was a big hole at the back. What had happened was this was at the top of the valley, which went down. And when we finally managed to stop them dumping toxic waste down the bottom, they, within a 6 or 7 month period, they knew the shit's going to hit the fan. So what they did was they started digging where this grass is just across here. Mondi and a whole lot of other companies dump their ash here now, until this landfill site can be closed off properly. Now that this landfill site, as you can see, is visibly full, it can't take any more ash. Mondi now wants to burn the ash, incinerate it, to incinerate all their waste in their boilers.
Now we find an alternative. It's called the incinerator. It's called a new name. They got a new name for it. Multi-fuel boiler. Nice name. You change the name. And a multi-fuel boiler is basically an incinerator, because all it's going to do is going to burn the toxic ash, all the heavy metals, and all it's going to do is put it up into the air, and you're going to breathe it into your lungs.
In the mid-90s, when Sasol was bringing gas into Durban, Mondi promised that they would change the energy source to gas.
The first reason they objected was because we proposed to use a multi-fuel boiler to generate energy, not move to natural gas.
It's cheaper to burn coal, and it's cheaper to burn their own waste than to burn gas.
In 1998, Mondi came to a meeting in the community, and this minister of all the South, it's called the sulfur dioxide committee, and said, look, we're paying a lot of money for sulfur. We're going to be good neighbors to you, we'll reduce, and we're going to change the gas. And they changed the gas. They brought in the best gas boiler you could ever see. You could sit on the floor and eat your food. They now want to put the boiler on standby and use increased coal. Because obviously there's huge Anglo-American owns huge coal reserves in this country, which is very cheap for them.
They say cost, but we've never ever been given the cost of natural gas, because Mondi's been saying the cost of natural gas is prohibitive, and we're saying give us the cost, and they haven't given us that cost. And in that they've said no, therefore they have to use waste and their own coal. What is important is they're also going to increase their coal consumption in this particular case. What is important of gas is, one, it will reduce significantly the amount of pollution that those Mondi burners will emit. Number two is, when you burn gas, you don't get a waste product as coal ash. So Mondi would have been scoring on both ends, but for financial reasons they have chosen themselves to rather continue using coal and burning waste in our neighborhood as energy.